that's a quick overview on the Greys. The reptilians, as far as I can identify, are bad guys. They're known for, they can make themselves appear to be anything. All the ancient accounts of the snake, the serpent, all that, that's who they're talking about, is that breed of alien. I prefer not to talk about them because, yeah, they're little bastards. I'll openly say that. That's who everybody's talking about when they refer to the demons and all that. That's them. That's them. One thing I want to make really clear is from my experience, and I've had a lot of it, and I've taken a lot of time to carefully figure it out because I don't want anything to do, I want nothing to do with a being that's here to bring chaos, that's here to hurt people, that's here to use people, that's here to enslave people. I want nothing to do with that, and I don't think I've made that clear enough to this point. And I've spent a tremendous amount of time, especially in the beginning. You know, of course that was a concern of mine, of course it was. And so that's why I'll have nothing to do with these beings, the reptilians. My wife and I one time, this is a wild story of when we saw on the ground. We were looking at buying a house at one time, and it was a nice place, and the market was down, so we thought maybe we'd get a good deal on it. And we're in back walking around. It had, 5 fenced acres and all that, which is funny now because since that point, I've sort of given up on money, and that's no longer within the realm of possibilities. Affording something like that, not even remotely close. We look and we see what we think is a little rabbit, and we're watching it, just sort of walking along, talking. Didn't seem like any big deal. All of a sudden, this freaking thing gets up on 2 legs, and its knees were bent backwards. And the best description we could put to it was a roadrunner, jackalope, rabbit, antelope mix. And this thing freaking takes off at, it took us a couple seconds to realize what had just happened. Like, holy crap, did you see that? And we both saw the exact same thing. It probably started, I don't know, 30 feet from us. But obviously, we came up across it and scared it or something. But it took off, and I looked at it and calculated it had to be going 120 to 150 miles an hour at full speed. And this thing takes off and just starts bounding, leaps and bounds at, gosh, I'd say 60 to maybe even 100 feet a bound by the end, and it just sort of leaped over the hill and was off into the distance. It was quite the thing to see, and I'm not sure that was a reptilian. It could have been one of their little creatures they put down here. I don't think much comes down here that's not intelligent, so that's my guess as to what it was. It didn't harm us, fortunately, or scare us, so that's good. But reptilians pretend to be greys, and they quote-unquote abduct people in a very similar way that greys do. And the reason for doing this is very obvious. They want us to think that they're the bad guys, and then they won't erase the memory like greys do. Greys will almost always erase every single ounce of your memory, and you really got to work to get it back and start communicating with them, and that's when it comes. But they scare the hell out of people, and they make themselves appear as greys and tell them they're greys. And this, when I saw the Fourth Kind movie, and it was clear as day to me that if there's any accuracy to what had happened to me, it looked like there was, for sure, that this is what was going on. And this is unfortunate. I mean, there are certainly ET beings out there that lie, steal, cheat, do whatever they want, and this is the primary breed responsible for doing that. And I refuse to work with them or have anything to do with them. Do I feel I've been tricked by them a couple times? Yeah. Especially in the early part. It seems like they really like to mess with people in the beginning. And the actual genuine greys or better beings will just sort of let them do their thing and let the human figure it out on their own. And why they do that, apparently that's just the way to do it through their experience. And I kind of agree with it, because you've got to learn to differentiate. And they logistically cannot jump in and save you from them all the time. You've got to learn ways to do it yourself, which is mostly by ignoring them. They get bored with you sooner or later. They want chaos and they want to scare people, and if they can't do that with you, they'll eventually go away. It takes some time, though, sometimes. But a lot of people, I've seen people have been quote-unquote possessed or all that. It's very, very real. Yeah, absolutely it's real. And it's awful. So that's something that probably a lot of you will experience or have experienced. If you're listening, you've been contacted. And it's a fight. So that's what I have to say about that species. Other than that, I choose to ignore them and not give them attention anymore. But know that they're out there, and that they lie and they pretend to be the good beings. And that's the source of a lot of misinformation. And the tall blue-eyed blondes, as far as I know, you're talking about the Pleiadians. And yeah, I've just recently been in contact with them last month or so. They're very much like us, and I think that maybe we are their first creation, and that's why all the problems are going on. Fortunately, with the 2012 changes I'll go into a little further, there's a large variety of species coming from all ends of the universe to help us through this. Because they know the future impact that a species has, and it betters them, it helps them to help us down the line a million years. And that's how they look at things. So here's another question I sort of touched on there in explaining them. They ask, they don't have any emotions, right? They're like robots, or maybe they're like cyborgs. No, this is a misconception. Are they emotionless? Absolutely not. Do they let emotions get in the way of logic or what they feel is necessary to do for the better of the universe? No, they do not. They are very good at not acting emotionally. And this is perceived as bad by a lot of people, and I strongly disagree. Let's look at murder. Let's look at war. Isn't emotion pretty much the main reason for all of these awful acts that mankind is notorious for committing to one another? I mean, really, emotions are good. Love is good. Kindness is good. And they display those all the time. And I honestly even think they probably do that strategically because they know it's important to me and it's important to humans. I mean, they've observed that we're very, very emotional beings, so of course they show those because it works better for everybody that way. And they're very loving and kind at many times, and I know it's genuine. But they just don't let it get in the way. They don't let it get in the way of stuff, which is a natural step in evolution. It really, truly is. So everybody sort of labels them as unemotional and heartless and stuff. Well, that's because they're sort of taking into account the only emotion we have is kindness and love, which is bullshit. I mean, we have very strong emotions of revenge and anger and cruelty. And these emotions are gone too, which is a damn good thing in my book. But it's a natural step in evolution. You can see that within a human lifetime. When you look at a child, is much more emotional usually than an old person, and that's just the evolution within one lifetime. You learn to control your emotions as you get older and more mature, and this stands true for evolution as well. And that's why people see them as emotionless. But no, they aren't emotionless. They can be very kind, relatively funny, a very bland sense of humor sometimes, but no, not emotionless, no. All right, a lot of people want to know about their ships, what their vehicles they drive around in, which is kind of funny. It's kind of like coming to a human, like, wow, tell me about your car. It's a transportation place. It's a shelter. It's very important things, but it's just kind of funny that at this point people are just more caught up in the UFOs than they are the aliens themselves, because society by and large, certainly in the part of the world that I reside in, they just have a hard time believing these guys even exist, which is absolutely unlogical and insane. There's tremendous amounts of proof that I've put in some of my other videos, and I won't go into again so I'm not redundant, but check out my channel if you want to see some of those. But let me tell you a little bit about what I know about the ships. I'm not a mechanical person, so nor am I like a car buff, so I guess I haven't asked much while I'm up there, so my knowledge is relatively limited on it. I do know the kind of ships they have would blow your mind. I've been told there's ships that are 8,000 miles long and wide. I mean, they're just absolutely enormous. None of these are close to Earth at this point, obviously. It'd be pretty easy to see them. They can also be really small. There's these little probes that they seem to shoot out. There's some of them that seem more like sensors than an actual ship, but have some retrieval mechanism. One of the sightings I saw, and I'll put the link to it here, you can see it come out of the bottom of this plane morphed type deal that they fly around in. And I actually heard it zip by my head as the ship retrieved it, or it retrieved itself back to the ship. And I would have to guess, I have no idea how big it is, but I would say football size, possibly, maybe a little bigger. And then there's also a lot of ships that are discs that are probably 20 feet in diameter. And they're robotic as well. I mean, there's not actual beings in them. They come down, and their job is they just take measurements, and they observe, and they can do all sorts of stuff that we can't even imagine. But the big ones are obviously the motherships, and they have the capability to hold other ships.